up guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I post commentary and critique and reaction videos, basically just sharing my opinion. So if any of that interests you, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe and turn on the post notifications bell so that you never miss another upload. Alrighty guys, so in today's video, I'm doing something like a little bit different. As you guys know, I typically do kind of critique or commentary videos on kind of stuff that goes on social media and the internet in general, but I actually wanted to go ahead and try something a little bit different and do kind of a commentary and critique of the film industry. So some of you may know, some of you may not know that I study film at university. I just finished the first year of my bachelor. So yeah, I'm a massive film geek. I just love movies and TV shows and just storytelling in general. So I really want to go ahead and try and incorporate that a little bit more into my channel if you guys want it. And I thought, what better way of doing that than shitting all over the film industry? No, I'm kidding. Basically today I'm just going to be critiquing the film industry and more specifically Hollywood blockbusters and kind of my problems with the industry. And let's just get those off the table already. I know that there are a lot of problems with the film industry, and if I were to speak on all of them, we would be here for a very, very long time. So before anyone gets butthurt that I didn't speak about a certain problem, it doesn't mean that I don't care about the problem or that I don't think it is a valid problem. It just means that I didn't have time. So I have around 6 issues that I want to speak about today, and they kind of range from topic to topic. I basically want to start off speaking about kind of my problems with the film industry in terms of the remakes and reboots and sequels and live action remakes and all that crap, and then go into like the lack of originality in the film industry, the shift from artistic integrity to just wanting to make money, and some more serious topics like the mistreatment and misrepresentation of minorities and kind of political agendas being shoved down our throats. So we have a range of topics to talk about today. It's going to be a fun but bumpy ride. But honestly, it wouldn't be a video of mine if it wasn't controversial, and that's just the tea on that. So anyway, without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right on into the video, because I'm about to dive in. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and start by talking about reboots, remakes, and sequels, and what would this conversation be without the pioneer of this movement, Disney? So let's start off by talking about Disney, and then we'll move on to the other studios. Now, I don't think that remakes and reboots and sequels are absolutely awful. I do think there are some that are done really well, but it's just that they are more done badly than there are that are done well. I think Disney does their remakes and reboots and live action remakes pretty well, okay? I think they have some really great ones. Like, I am a huge fan of the Maleficent movies, and I think the reason for that is, while it is a live action remake of Sleeping Beauty, which is a beloved tale, I think that they did a really great job by showing it from the villain's point of view and by just having the movie as a live action from a different point of view. So it's like you're getting that live action of the animation that you love, but you're getting a different story. So it's something new. It's something a little bit original. It's not so lazy, if you will. But then we get their other live action remakes like Cinderella that came out in 2015, which a lot of you, like me, have probably forgotten about because it was that forgettable. That movie was literally just a carbon copy remake of the animation just made live action, and it was boring, just like Beauty and the Beast. Lord, was that movie a disappointment. I think that just making a live action remake of the animation is lazy, because you don't need to come up with a new story, you don't need to come up with new ideas. Literally all you're doing is taking an animation which was perfectly fine on its own and turning it into a live action feature film so that you can make millions and billions of dollars. But look, I'm okay with it. I don't necessarily hate them. Some of them are even enjoyable, but there are some that I also believe are just unnecessary. Like, I don't think that Disney needs to make a live action remake of every single one of their films, and one of the films that I think they shouldn't have was The Lion King, which may be controversial, I'm not sure. I feel like a lot of adults or people who watch the animation weren't really a fan of it, and I can totally understand why, because I wasn't either. You're basically just watching a Nature Channel-esque film with voices dubbed over the animals. You saw no emotion in the animals' faces because animals don't really show emotion in their faces like humans. So I think that a lot of the stuff that you can do in an animation with animals, because obviously it's not as realistic, they couldn't do in a live action film. It was all digitally created, so is it even live action? You know, it's basically just like a animation made to look extremely realistic, which isn't really what people want. Like, you know, when you play a video game that's super realistic and it just kind of makes you uncomfortable because it's like on the verge of being animated but real at the same time, and it just doesn't sit well, okay? It's like this foreign feeling of like, you kind of look real, but like you also kind of look fake, you know? Kind of like a Kardashian, basically. But anyways, moving on, I think a lot of studios saw the success when Disney did their first ever live action remake, which was Alice in Wonderland, which just blew up and was massively successful, and Disney has been doing remakes ever since. I think a lot of studios saw that and tried to emulate their success, but unfortunately failed epically. But anyway, moving on from remakes, let's go ahead and talk about reboots. So actually what sparked me to make this video was recently I went ahead and watched the Charlie's Angels movie, and holy crap, that movie was an epic flop. So if you don't know, the Charlie's Angels movie with like Kristen Stewart and 2 other actresses, directed by Elizabeth Banks, is a reboot of the famous franchise from like 2 decades ago. And you know, I went into the movie with very low expectations because I had seen the reviews, and also because I never watched the original Charlie's Charlie's Angel movies, I don't think, so I didn't really have that nostalgia or that high expectation for the film. So I went into it purely just wanting to have an enjoyable film to watch, and that it was not. The movie was terrible for various different reasons, but I think it just goes to show that reboots are almost always a flop, and I think I know the reason for that. So I think a lot of the time these studios and big producers and execs see that they have these original TV shows and movies that have done extremely well and people crave more and more of it, so they think they can go ahead and just do a reboot of it and that it will do amazing, but more often than not, that's not the case. I mean, look at That's So Raven, one of the most iconic television shows on Disney. When they did the reboot of that, it was an epic flop. When they did the reboot of Gilmore Girls, that was not really received well, as well as Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Look at how much of a flop that was. So I think the issue with reboots is a lot of the time these studios think that just because people love the original so much that they'll just love the reboot, and they don't really put a lot of effort into it or effort into changing it up that much. They just reboot it and it almost always fails. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, the studios and the audience who keep asking for these things, like you see a lot of people asking for a Lizzie McGuire reboot and now they're going to get it, and I bet you they're not going to be happy with that either. And a lot of people asking for a Friends reboot, which I hope they don't touch Friends, just leave it be, okay? I think what a lot of people forget is that all good things must come to an end. Not everything needs to keep going on and on and on forever. Things can start and they can end, and you can just enjoy them in that period of time. And I don't understand why we feel the need to constantly have more and more and more. I think that while the audience is greedy, the studio is even more greedy and plays on our nostalgia and our love for things so that they can profit off of us. And we give into it a lot of the time, but I think we're starting to realize now as an audience that reboots and remakes are often lazy, unoriginal, and just a shitty excuse for a way for them to just make more money. And honestly, the same can be said for sequels. I think a lot of studios have successful films that they never planned turning into a series or never planned having a sequel to, but then they see how well it does and they're like, you know what, why not continue with this? We can make even more money. And then we get sequels like Mean Girls 2. Do y'all remember that? Mean Girls is one of the most iconic films of the first decade of the 21st century. And when they made a sequel to it without any of the actors from the original film, I don't know what they were thinking, but of course it flopped. That movie is trash, the idea was trash, the entire thing was trash, throw it in the bin. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of sequels that are good, but let's be real. More often than not, the first movie is always better than the sequel, and that's not a coincidence. Although, the Shrek sequels are pretty good. Anyways, moving on. So I think what I'm gathering here, and what you guys can hopefully see, is that all of this, just the reason for it, and the reason for a lot of the problems in Hollywood and the film industry, is greed. Studios and producers and directors and all these people just want to make more money. At the end of the day, a lot of these feature films and blockbusters don't care about the art of the film or the art of filmmaking or the artistry or the message that they're sending. They just care about making money, which is just the sad reality, but it doesn't negate the fact that the film industry is losing its artistic integrity. And that can be seen in many different ways. You know, there's just a general lack of originality in films. You have a lot of films that just have the same concept or trend or trope. Like, do you remember when like characters being hit on the head and then waking up completely different was a trend? There were like 3 movies that came out about it in the span of 2 months. And there are film franchises out there that really take this to the extreme and lose their artistic integrity just so that they can make more money. I think a prime example of that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Do not get me wrong, Marvel stans, I really enjoy the Marvel movies. However, I recently did an assignment for my Contemporary Screen Histories course where we had to go ahead and investigate kind of the impact of certain things on the film industry, and I decided to go ahead and focus on the impacts of CGI on the film industry and the art of filmmaking through the lens of kind of the Marvel universe, and I learned some really interesting things. So obviously we all know that a lot of these superhero movies and action films have like a shit ton of CGI in them, but there are actually some scenes in some of the recent Marvel films where the character isn't even being played by the actor. Like there was a scene in Thor where Chris Hemsworth jumps down and that's not even Chris Hemsworth. That's not his face. That is just a CGI digi-double of him. And there are scenes in the Avengers Endgame where some of the characters don't even interact with each other. I read about kind of Tom Holland leaking spoilers about the film and stuff like that, so that's why they had to do it, and because they didn't want the actors to know what was going to happen in case they leaked spoilers, because that's the huge thing about the Marvel universe is all of the different things that you find out and all the different spoilers. But it gets to a point where it's just like, well, where is the artistic integrity of the film then? Because now you have these actors playing these characters who literally don't even interact with each other in real life, but it looks like they are on film. And I don't know, it's just kind of weird to me that now the actors aren't even interacting with each other, they're interacting with green screens, and sometimes the actors aren't even in the scene that you're watching. It could just be a digi-double version of them. And to me, that's just kind of shitty. I feel like a lot of the time these films just kind of lose their artistic integrity just so that they can have these huge big CGI fights that wow and shock people and keep people coming to the theater so they can have more and more money. And I honestly, just the amount of movies they churn out and the repetitive nature of a lot of them, not just Marvel but other movies as well, it's just getting really exhausting. Like, I think people need to start focusing on the art of filmmaking and not just the money. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what blockbuster movies in Hollywood are nowadays. And that just leaves me feeling a little bit dry, a little bit bland. And I think a lot of people feel that way too. A lot of people feel like films nowadays are getting boring. However, there are tons of films out there, tons of great indie films out there to be watched, and tons that I'm looking into. However, we don't always gain access to those films because they're not marketed as much as these movies with big budgets, or they're not as easily accessible. However, I have a way that you guys can actually access a wide range of films that you wouldn't be able to otherwise by using the service ExpressVPN. So this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. They're basically a service that you can install on any of your electronic devices that protect your online information and your internet browsing from being accessed by outside sources. So without a VPN, your credit card information is actually quite accessible to hackers whenever you're online shopping or just filling in your details online. But with ExpressVPN, their services actually encrypt your internet data, which prevents others from gaining access to your information so that you can go ahead and shop online with the peace of mind that none of your information is at risk. And there are plenty of VPN services out there, but ExpressVPN is faster than any other one that you could choose. And they've got server locations in 94 countries, which gives you plenty of options to choose from. And when it comes to those movies and TV shows that you want to watch, ExpressVPN allows you to securely stream and download any content anywhere on any device. And Netflix actually provides different movies and TV shows for different countries. And here in Australia, we kind of have the raw end of the stick. There's a lot of films and TV shows that are given access to America, but not to us. So literally all I have to do is click a button and tell my internet provider that I'm in America, and then I can go ahead and watch anything on American Netflix or any other country for that matter. So yeah, I don't know, that's pretty cool if you ask me. So I highly recommend you guys check out ExpressVPN, and if you would like to try it out, you can actually get your first 3 months of a 1-year package completely free by using my link in the description, which is just ExpressVPN/Luke Alexander. And after your first 3 months are up, it's only $7 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and protect your online information and gain access to hundreds and thousands of more movies and TV shows by using ExpressVPN, which is just linked in the description below. But anyway guys, let's go ahead and hop right back into the video because we are not done yet. I still have a lot more to spill. Alrighty guys, now that we've touched on more of the lighter problems with the film industry, I want to go ahead and touch on some of the more serious ones. We'll get into like the more political stuff at the end because they kind of intertwine together, because I'm kind of going to look at things from both point of views, which if you're new here is something that I really do a lot on my channel, is try to look at things from both sides of the coin and play devil's advocate a little bit. So I'm going to look at things from both, I guess you could say, the left and the right sides of the political spectrum, if you will. I don't really know. I'm not really a big political person. I want to go ahead and kind of speak about the misrepresentation and mistreatment of minorities in the film industry, and then kind of get into the political agendas of Hollywood blockbusters. Starting off once again with Charlie's Angels, because that's kind of what sparked this video. The director of the film, Elizabeth Banks, states that the reason the movie didn't do well is because it was a female-driven action movie and because it was directed by a female, and she basically thinks that the reason that the film didn't do well is because of sexism, which, I mean, is really not the case, okay? You know, like the movie was marketed towards women, so she can't necessarily be mad at men for not going to watch it because, you know, there are a lot of films that women like to watch that men don't like to watch and vice versa. So I'm a little bit confused as to why she is going on and on about how men will go and see a superhero movie or an action movie that's being remade, but they won't see a action movie with a woman which is marketed towards women. And also, I don't think that's why people aren't enjoying the movie, because I personally love action movies with women. Like I think Ocean's 8, which is kind of like a sequel to an action series that is made up of only men, but this time being made up with only women, was done so incredibly well. I think the movie was so entertaining to both men and women, and the reason for that is because it wasn't trying to like push anything down your throat. When I went to watch Charlie's Angels, I just wanted to watch an enjoyable movie with some action and some funny moments, but a lot of the time there was a lot of commentary about, you know, men being stupid or men only wanting certain things, and I don't think that the reason the film didn't do well is because it's by women who made the movie and women who starred in the movie. Like the movie just wasn't good, okay? The writing was not good. There was a lot of moments that were supposed to be funny, especially from Kristen Stewart, that just didn't land well. They weren't funny. The action was really not that great. 2 out of the 3 angels were actresses that no one really knows. So there are a lot of different factors as to why the movie didn't do well, and I don't think that the reason that the film didn't do well is because it was directed by a woman and because it starred women. But by no means am I trying to negate that sexism in Hollywood does exist, because it definitely does. You know, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, racism, all of that does exist. Any mistreatment of minorities in the world exists in Hollywood as well, and that can be seen across all different spectrums. So let's just go ahead and touch on all of those. First up, I want to go ahead and start with whitewashing, which is where a lot of films and TV shows replace a character that in the original source, whether that's a book or a fairy tale or whatever, they replace the character, which is a person of color, with a white actor instead. Now, for a long time, a lot of the movies and TV shows being made in Hollywood didn't really have very diverse cast or very diverse stories. It was mainly just white people telling white people's stories, and it has gotten better for sure. sure, but there are still issues, and one of those really big issues I think is whitewashing, because there's not a ton of stories that are created for people of color, and when you take the ones that are and replace it with white people, I think it is a massive slap in the face, and I honestly think it's so disrespectful, and you're taking an opportunity away from a whole group of people to have a story that they can relate to and a character that they can relate to, and I think that's really wrong. And I have two examples of those. So there was a controversy that I just found out today about that I didn't even hear that much about, which is Matt Damon, who played a character in the movie The Great Wall, which was supposed to be a Chinese character, but instead they whitewashed the character with this famous white actor. And I didn't hear that much about that, but then for some reason when Scarlett Johansson played a character that was supposed to be Asian in The Ghost in the Wall, it was such a huge problem and everybody was talking about it. It obviously is a problem. I think it's horrible that they whitewashed that character, but I do think that it is interesting how Scarlett Johansson got so much flack for that, but Matt Damon didn't, and that just goes to show that sexism very much does exist in the film industry. And I feel like that kind of goes without saying, but then there's a lot of these conservatives out there who make videos about films and completely reject the fact that a lot of problems are caused by sexism. They just think it doesn't exist and it's just SJWs and feminists who hate men, when no, sexism is still very much alive in Hollywood as well as it is in the world, and that's pretty obvious. And if you choose to ignore that, maybe you are in fact sexist. But anyway, beyond sexism, like I said, whitewashing is a horrible thing to do. Not only does it take an opportunity away from an actor of color, but it takes opportunities away from people of color who could watch that movie and relate to that character. So I think that's an awful thing. And also I just think we need more diversity in general, more diverse stories, and that kind of also goes into LGBTQ plus people. So obviously there are a lot of films out there where there are gay characters who are played by straight actors, and I don't think that's like a massive problem, but it also does kind of bother me because if you guys remember that movie Love, Simon, it's actually based off of a book, and I love that book so much. I related to the character so much. I'm not gay, but I'm bisexual, so I can relate to a lot of his struggles. And in the book, the character was, you know, just a gay nerdy guy, and then in the movie it's played by a really attractive straight actor, and I see that happening a lot in movies. You know, you even saw it in Call Me By Your Name, which while I love that movie, both of the characters are straight. There are a lot of actors out there who are gay who struggle to get roles because of that, and I just think it's kind of annoying when we have these characters that could be played by people who could play them a lot more authentically because they understand those struggles, instead being played by people who don't. And I get that it's acting and that it's pretend and everything, but when there are people out there who have experienced those things, why not allow them to play those characters? You know, why not give them that opportunity, because they're not given opportunities in other senses. Like, when do we ever see gay actors playing straight characters? And I'm sure it does happen, but it does not happen anywhere near as much as the former. And then we also have those issues with transgender characters. You know, if you guys remember, we had Jared Leto, who played a transgender woman in Dallas Buyers Club. He got lots of awards for that, lots of praises for that, and he did an amazing job, okay? But a lot of people were upset about that because he's not trans, and there are trans actors out there who don't get opportunities because they're trans, and then when there are opportunities for characters and roles that are trans, they don't even give them to trans people, so it's like they can never win. But once again, when it comes to that sexism thing, when Scarlett Johansson was set to play the role of a transgender man in, honestly I don't even remember the name of the film because I don't think it went through, she got so much more hate than Jared Leto. And once again, I think it's wrong to not allow transgender actors to play transgender roles, but it comes back to that sexism, is why was Scarlett Johansson given so much more hate than Jared Leto, a man? So as you guys can see, there are problems with racism and sexism and homophobia, but sexism seems to be the thing that is linking through all of these different issues. However, I don't think that you can always blame sexism. Sometimes there is just movies that are bad movies. There are definitely issues, but when it comes to the Charlie's Angels thing, that's beyond sexism, okay? It was just a shit movie. But at the end of the day, filmmaking is supposed to be art forms that are entertaining, and I am all for films that send a message and tell diverse stories, but there's a difference between sending a message and being preachy. People need to be very careful with the ways that they go about things. I don't think you need to always push your political agenda or beliefs through a film. You know, if you want to do that, that's fine, but don't be surprised when a lot of people don't enjoy it, okay? Because you're only going to cater to one group of people because not everybody has the same beliefs. Let's just go back to having films that are entertaining, that are artistic, and that tell diverse stories. You can do that without pushing your agenda down someone's throat, okay? And I guess that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I obviously have a lot more that I could speak on. I'm sure I'm going to edit this and be like, crap, I wish I spoke about that. I wish I spoke about that. But at the end of the day, this is such a convoluted topic that I could speak about for ages. And if you guys want me to make any videos in the future about specific things that I mentioned or certain things that I didn't mention, let me know in the comments down below. And just let me know what you think about this topic in general. I would love to hear your thoughts and your point of view. As always, here on my channel, I always advocate for you guys to share your opinion, whether or not it is controversial. I just want to have a respectful conversation in the comments down below. But yeah, guys, anyway, that's it for me in this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribed and you turn on that post notifications bell. And if you'd like to go ahead and follow me on any of my social media, they're just linked down below, as well as the link to your first 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Guys, they support the channel, so why not go ahead and check them out. out. Who knows, you might really love the services. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me in this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you in my next video, and of course, as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you're in the world. Bye.